there, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about The Crow 2024, which was released to zero fanfare, fan division, bad reviews, terrible box office, and just was a complete catastrophe, of a release. It was like everything went wrong. The trailers that came out beforehand made it look terrible. I mean, they really did. I mean, I've seen all the Crow films and I looked at them going, ugh. It just looked bad. They never found an angle to tell that, and then the film came out and people just didn't like it. But I, on the other hand, did quite like it. It's not up on par with the original. The original is much better. And this one has lots of flaws, but it has some things it does well. And it isn't like, when you've seen some of the other Crow sequels, this one doesn't look that bad. It's far better than City of Angels or Salvation. Salvation is one of the worst films I've ever seen. Salvation is absolutely appalling. And City of Angels is a mess. I prefer Wicked Prayer in the Crow series because it's very low budget, it's very eccentric, it's very weird. But it wears its weirdness in its sleeve and it goes to its flaws. This one's just as flawed as Wicked Prayer. But it's a bit more, it's a bit less fun because it doesn't have stuff like Dennis Hopper talking like he's reading from the weirdest script ever. It doesn't have Danny Trejo as a priest. It doesn't have those kind of weird things. It doesn't have a Crow who's just as bad as everyone else. That stuff that Wicked Prayer did, even though its budget kind of killed it in terms of the actions and the atmosphere side of things, at least it had lots of ideas. This one has less ideas, has more atmosphere. So it's a bit more tied to the original. But it isn't trying to be the original again. I think the big problem with doing a Crow remake is the fact that the original works for what it is. It knows exactly what it is, and that's it. And it does it perfectly for what it is. Now, you can criticise some of the supporting characters. You can criticise the fact that it's very much style over everything. The style infuses the substance of the film. The substance isn't very complicated. It's basically a fairy story. But it still delivers that. And it just works. I mean, again, the Brandon Lee thing, because he died during the making of it, added a weight to it, which I'm sure the film wouldn't have had otherwise, but the film just worked for what it is. And the big problem with some of the sequels has been there's been no weight to anything. It's just been like an exercise in lots of theatrical shoot-em-ups and style, but no real story substance. This one tries to do something different. Basically, the character Eric and Shelley are in this one, but they're not meant to be the same. It's a remake, but it's kind of a loose remake. It literally could be, two characters with the same names and taking place in the same universe. It could basically be that and be fine. So it doesn't map itself out as being a definite remake and we're changing everything from the first one. It's like, no, it's just another Crow movie ultimately. I think that's one of its biggest problems is it's just based on another Crow movie. And it's a series that's died 20 years ago, and to try to reboot it, and it was a thing of its time. You don't really need to remake this one. This one doesn't quite have the narrative resonance of some other films of that time. It doesn't have the expanded universe that you could actually play off, because it's so focused on this one same story. But they do variations, like Bill Skarsgard plays Eric in this one. He's a guy who's far more disturbed than the Brandon Lee character was. He's not really anything. He's just a guy white trash guy whose parents were disturbed and he's just been abandoned by society. He's been left alone, and you first find him in a lunatic asylum, where he meets the love of his life, Shelley, who acted mad to escape from which she was getting chased by these guys because they think on her phone there's footage that would implicate an important guy played by Danny Houston, which is not the greatest plot thing. but it's really just a reason to get them together. Now, so they get together, they start having an attraction, and then they escape from the asylum once they realise that these people are still after her, and they've found the asylum where she is, and they're going to try and find her, but Eric helps her escape. They have a love story. They find them again, and she killed both of them. Eric comes back from the dead, and slowly learns to become the Crow, to take down the villains, and get revenge, and in this case, bring Shelley back to life if he gives up his soul for hers, as a way to show off what he's lost, and what he's willing to do to prove himself to her, because he's obviously got a lot of self-esteem issues. Now, the best and worst thing in this are intertwined. The best thing is it takes a psychological approach to these characters and makes them much more interesting. But that's the worst thing as well, because it takes away the purity of the fairy story. I mean, in the original, Shelley's basically a figure that's unapproachable because she dies during the credits, basically, and it's just his memory of her. And some people say, oh, that's fridging a character. And it's a revenge story. Someone has to die, and it's basically a scene half through his memories. That's it. That's the character. And it works the simple fairy story element. This one doesn't do that. You get to know her, and the problem is Twiggy plays her and she's not a good actress. Not in this film anyway. But I don't think most of the actors were directed that great. Rupert Sanders, who directed it, is good at visuals, but he's not good with actors. He did the Snow White movie years ago, and he did the Ghost in the Shell movie. And one of the things about him has always been he's been good at visuals, but with actors it's like less solid ground. He's a visual guy. So Bill Skarsgard can take care of himself. He understands. He's an experienced actor. He knows what he's doing. He can show a lot, even if the direction is not great. But she's like needs a director who's good with actors to get her through this thing. So the Lost Story, interestingly, they don't have stunning chemistry, but they have kind of the awkward chemistry of a couple. It's more lifelike, because if you see most people in real life, it's more of an awkward chemistry people have, and the kind of genuine chemistry takes place over time. So if you see someone like 3 or 4 years into a relationship, they've got private jokes, they've got things between them. But if you see them in year one, it's much more awkward and try hard, and that film gets that a little bit more, partially due to the chemistry not being quite there. But it makes it interesting, and he's trying to prove his love to her because he feels insecure about himself. So it makes for some interesting things going on in the film, that as the film goes on, it keeps it interesting, keeps it from being the same old. And in the same way in Wicked Prayer had the same thing where you had Edward Furlong as the lead guy, and basically he doesn't look like Skarsgård. He doesn't look like a Crow kind of character because he's more of a character actor. So you get better scenes of character stuff, but when it comes to the actual Crow scenes, it's less impressive. It's the same thing in this one. You get some good fight stuff towards the end because of the time to choreograph it, but Skarsgård as a Crow does not feel physically imposing, and they make up for that with lots of gore, really, and lots of visual panache and things like that. But he's still never going to be that imposing, and the character stuff in the film is more interesting than the visual stuff for making the Crow seem scary. Plus, in this one, also like Wicked Prayer, the Crow's meant to be learning things. He's not really he never becomes the Brandon Lee Crow who's great at all this stuff. He's much more learning on the ropes, and you're seeing all the mistakes he made. So it's less of a gothic theatrical thing and much more of a guy who's learning the job, and he doesn't really become the Crow until the last scene. And even then, again, it's visual panache and good editing rather than anything else. I mean, if you look at Skarsgård in Boy Kills World, he's far better at the action. The action's choreographed a lot better for him there, and it looks far more impressive there. In this one, it looks more awkward, haven't quite worked out, because I try to make him awkward for a lot of it till he learns the job. It's a bit more. It doesn't quite work, and then when he finally learns it, he's basically Crow at that point. It's still not great. Again, it's just a case of I don't think the choreography was good, and it wasn't used as well. They make up with gore, lots of gore, rather than stunning choreography. But I mean, the original had a lot of darkness, and the original had a guy who could do actual martial arts, and this one you have a guy who's done some martial arts film, but he's a lot less shaky ground. That's the problem with the Crow series is, if you get a good actor, he's probably not going to be as imposing as the Crow. And sometimes they've got actors in the sequel, like City of Angels and Salvation, where they've got actors to look the part, but you never get anything from them. And even the second one, Vince Perez played the Crow, and he's a good actor, but he wasn't given anything to do. And Brandon Lee was that weird mix. He could do the action, but he also could do the acting bit of it. But he was an unusual case. So the characters, like, sometimes they get the look right, sometimes they get the acting bit right, but they can't get both. And this film falls into that trap as well. So a lot of it's more interesting than effective. So as someone, I don't mind flawed films. I could watch it and go, oh, that's interesting. But there was no real, if you're looking for a forward narrative that really delivers, this doesn't really have that. The actual death scene is the worst part of the film because it's not particularly interesting. Yeah, the guy they get suffocated, and it's the least visually interesting death you can do. And it's like, well, that's one of the big scenes that get you motivated for the second half of the movie, and it doesn't happen. There's some interesting thing when they go to the other world is that there was a guy who mentors him and tells him what he needs to do as a Crow, which is good because it's very much based on Tarkovsky kind of images and things like that, which is fun to see in a modern kind of blockbuster. And at least the atmosphere is interesting. Everything's interesting. Danny Houston's a villain, and he's played this part so many times that he looks a little bit bored, but he's still a professional. But he's obviously not been challenged in this part. And the character could have done with a few more wrinkles to make it fascinating. The idea was this guy who's lived for centuries, and he's been sacrificing souls of other people. That's why Shelley is a target, because she got a video of that. And it's an interesting, like, Hansel and Gretel like era villain type of setup, but they don't do enough with it to make it creepier and creepier. And that's the thing, is there's lots of stuff there that work, but they don't do enough with it. It just feels like they kind of had the basics and they decided to shoot them before they'd worked everything out. They hadn't solidified the script to deal with everybody and what they were good at, and they hadn't put it all together. So it was just one of those films that was just kind of floats there. It's not quite there. So it's a weird film. It's not worth the damnation that it got, but it's not a great film either. It's just that in the middle thing where there are bits that I like a lot, and there's bits that I think are not so good. But it's not worthless. It's not Borderlands. Borderlands was from Lionsgate as well, which came out a few weeks before, and this got a reputation. The film got a reputation has been another Borderlands. It's not that. It's more interesting than that. But if you're looking for a traditional Crow movie, you're going to be disappointed. You know, it's just it does something different, and it's not as successful, and so there's lots of things to be frustrated by. But if you go in not expecting a masterpiece and thinking, let's see what they do with it, there are pleasures to be had. Well, again, this is one like Wicked Prayer where I could easily go and rewatch quite easily. You know, they're very imperfect films in lots of ways, but they're interesting, eccentric. I mean, Salvation and City of Angels are just unwatchable. The first one's still the best, but this is not bad. Right, so hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sure you're wondering, why has he seen all the Crow movies and be able to talk about them? You know, too much time in my hands. I like gothic revenge movies. Right, so that's me. Hope you enjoyed the video. That's me for now. Bye.